All right, we should be there. All right, guys, I think we're live here. If I'm not mistaken. One thing I do not. Okay, yeah, it is very weird, this update. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug. Shabbat Shalom. We are the Wakened by Yahuah Assembly. So you got me, my mom over here, and Sister Marissa, Brother Yahusha, Brother Dennis is over here. Let me fix his name here. Every time it seems like when you call in here, you never get your name, just get a number. So let me see here. Okay, that's fixed. Today we're going to be continuing our Second Kings readings. So just give me a sec, guys. And just bear with me, guys. This is a new setup for Zoom here. I noticed that they just changed to workplace here, so it's a little different. Let's see here. I wonder if you have to hit escape to minimize. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be trial by error type of thing today because Zoom just had to update today. All right, so here we go. I got my Word software open. Mom, I might have to go for a brief break. Sure. So if you could possibly start us
No
at
problem.
Second Kings
No problem.
4.
Okay, very good. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered Yahuah. But now his creditor is coming to take my two boys as his slaves." Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a little oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side." She left him and afterwards shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one." But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of Yahuah, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." One day, Elisha went to Shunem, and a well to do woman was there who urged him to stay for a meal. So whenever he came by, he stopped there to eat. She said to her husband, "I know that this man, who often comes our way, is a set apart man of Yahuah. Let's make a small room on the roof and put in it a bed and a table, a chair, and a lamp for him. Then he can stay there whenever he comes to us." One day when Elisha came, he went up to his room and lay down there. He said to his servant Gehazi, "Call the Shunammite." So he called her, and she stood before him. Elisha said to him, "Tell her, you have gone to all this trouble for us. Now what can be done for you? Can we speak on your behalf to the king or the commander of the army?" She replied, "I have a home among my own people. What can be done for her?" Elisha asked. Gehazi said, "Well, she has no son and her husband is old." Then Elisha said, "Call her." So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. "About this time next year," Elisha said, "you will hold a son in your arms." "No, my master," she objected. "Don't listen to your servant, O man of Yahuah." But the woman became pregnant, and the next year, about that same time, she gave birth to a son, just as Elisha had told her. The child grew, and one day he went out to his father, who was with the reapers. My head," he said to his father. His father told the servant, "Carry him to his mother." After the servant had lifted him up and carried him to his mother, the boy sat on her lap until noon, and then he died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Yahuah, then shut the door and went out. She called her husband and said, "Please send me one of the servants and a donkey, so I can go to the man of Yahuah quickly and return." "Why go to him today?" he asked. "It's not the new moon or the Shabbat." "It's all right," she said. She saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Lead on, don't slow down for me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of Yahuah at Mount Carmel. When he saw her in the distance, the man of Yahuah said to his servant Gehazi, "Look, there's the Shunammite. Run to meet her and ask her, 'Are you all right? Is your husband all right? And is your child all right?'" "Everything is all right," she said. When she reached the man of Yahuah at the mountain, she took hold of his feet. Gehazi came over to push her away, but the man of Yahuah said, "Leave her alone. She is in bitter distress. But Yahuah has hidden it from me and has not told me why." "Did I ask you for a son, my master?" she said. "Didn't I tell you, don't raise my hopes?" Elisha said to Gehazi, "Tuck your cloak into your belt. Take my staff in your hand and run. If you meet anyone, do not greet him. And if anyone greets you, do not answer. Lay my staff on the boy's face." But the child's mother said, "As surely as Yahuwah lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So he got up and followed her. Gehazi went on ahead and laid the staff on the boy's face, but there was no sound or response. So Gehazi went back to meet Elisha and told him, "The boy has not awakened." When Elisha reached the house, there was the boy lying dead on his couch. He went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed to Yahuwah. Then he got on the bed and lay upon the boy, mouth to mouth, eyes to eyes, hands to hands. As he stretched out himself out upon him, the boy's body grew warm. Elisha turned away and walked back and forth in the room, and then got on the bed and stretched out upon him once more. The boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Elisha summoned Gehazi and said, "Call the Shunammite," and he did. When she came, he said, "Take your son." She came in, fell at his feet, and bowed to the ground. Then she took her son and went out. Next section is called Death in the Pot. Elisha returned to Gilgal, and there was a famine in that region. While the company of the prophets was meeting with him, he said to his servant, "Put on the large pot and cook some stew for these men." One of them went out into the fields to gather herbs and found a wild vine. He gathered some of its gourds and filled the fold of his cloak. When he returned, he cut them up into the pot of stew, though no one knew what they were. The stew was poured out for the men, but as they began to eat it, they cried out, "O man of Yahuwah, there is death in the pot," and they could not eat it. Elisha said, "Get some flour." He put it into the pot and said, "Serve it to the people to eat," and there was nothing harmful in the pot. A man came from Baal Shalisha, bringing the man of Yahuwah 20 loaves of barley bread, baked from the first ripe grain, along with some heads of new grain. "Give it to the people to eat," Elisha said. "How can I set this before 100 men?" his servant asked. But Elisha answered, "Give it to the people to eat, for this is what Yahuwah says. They will eat and have some left over." Then he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to the word of Yahuwah. Nice little shadow there.
Well, actually, there's multiple shadows
Oh,
in this
yeah.
chapter. You gotta
Oh, yeah.
just kind of pay attention to this. Verse 16 goes back to Genesis with Abraham. Okay, Yahuah promised Sarah to bear a child,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So you have Elisha promising her she's going to bear a child. There's actually multiple shadows in this chapter. I want to go back to the first verse. There's a couple of footnotes here on verse 1. The creditor come take my 2 children to be his slaves. So the concept in the Torah is when you would be in debt to someone, sometimes you had to sell your own children to get out of debt, and to be household servants of someone else. You can find this in Leviticus 25:39, Isaiah 50 verse 1, Amos 2 verse 6. Something about this story about the jars and the debt remind me of Yahusha's parable. Let me see if I can find it. There's a parable about, I think it's called the parable of the debtor, where it talks about, if you don't pay every single penny you own, you will have to be thrown in jail and all that. Let me see if I can find that. See, parable of the debtor. Let me see if I can find this, because I think he even mentions the jars of oil and everything. Yeah, Matthew 18:21 to 35. And let's see here. So the context with this. All right, so let's just go to that real quick. So you go to Matthew 18:21 to 35. I just kind of want to show a parallel here. Yeah, here we go. The kingdom of heaven. It's like a certain king who wanted to settle accounts, meaning debts, of his servants. When he began to set up, the debtor was brought to him owing 10,000 talents, but he had nothing to repay. His master, commanding that he be sold with his wife and his children, everything that he had, and to be repaid. Therefore, falling down before him, the servant said, Master, have patience with me. I will repay everything to you. Having compassion or mercy, the master of that servant released him, forgave him the loan. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii, and taking hold of him, he was choking, saying, "Pay me what you owe." So the other guy choked this other servant who owed him money. So the moral of this story so far is that if your master, meaning Yahusha, is having mercy on you, shouldn't you have mercy with your fellow worker, your fellow servant? That's your fellow brother, your sister. So his fellow servant fell down at his feet and kept begging him, saying, "Have patience with me, I will pay you back." But he was not willing. But going off, he cast him into prison till he should pay back what he was owed. So when his fellow servants saw what he had done, they were very grieved, and they came and narrated to their master all that had taken place. Then summoned him. His master said to him, "You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not have also compassion on your fellow servant, as I also had compassion on you?" The reason I'm bringing this parable up is because this is exactly what is going on with Elisha in his story, is that he's showing compassion to the woman, okay, with the debt that she has. And, he's showing her, okay, you fill your vats with oil, okay, you'll have enough left over, right? That's what it said in the chapter. So there's a similar, this might not be the exact parable I'm thinking of, but Yahusha, I think, had a parable where he talks about the vats of oil and all that. But anyway, this is similar. This is like a similar parallel about mercy and all that.
Yeah.
So Okay. Okay, yeah, true. Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. That unfortunately, I don't think there is a way to, so yeah, share screen might be pointless for the reader because yeah, you have to have someone scrolling the whole time to follow with the person reading. So yeah, that is kind of pointless. So yeah. Right. So yeah. Um, let me see though. I just wonder if there's another parable talking about the vats of oil. Let me see here. I could have sworn there was a parable about that. Oh, maybe not. Okay. No, there is a reference to Proverbs though. Proverbs 3:10, which says, then your barns will be filled with overflowing, your vats will brim over with new wine. So there's a similar concept in Proverbs 3:10. Uh, yeah. Yeah, I guess not. I thought there was a parable Yahusha dealt with um that that would have dealt with that, but I guess I'm wrong. Yeah,
Mm,
so I think now on guys, what I'm gonna try to do is like um only use the shared screen like if I'm reading or if someone's actually using the shared screen to read the scripture. If someone else is reading, I'm going to try to keep it off just because it's not going to be showing what's being read anyway because you have to scroll and follow. So unless I'm able to follow with what my mom is saying, like say I'm in an intermission, I'm going to try to take the screen off so that it's not what's the word I'm looking for, distracting to people and people are not able to follow anyway. If there's a case where I have to take a break and my mom reads and I'm not here to scroll while she's reading. So I'm gonna try to be implementing that just so people are not getting confused where the person's reading. So anyway. So let me see here. What I'm gonna do here is is there anything else that we really need to bring out from the chapter?
Well, I just felt that that last portion where the feeding was a direct parallel to when
Okay,
Yahusha feeds the 5,000.
did we get to the resurrecting of the child yet?
No, probably not.
Nah, not yet, right? Go ahead, bro.
I think it's I really like this chapter because Abba's just been remind Abba's been reminding me sorry um just obviously we still work, right? We provide for ourselves. We're commanded to do so, but at the end of the day, Yahuah is our provider regardless of how much or how little we make, and he can provide things to our needs regardless of how much or how little we make. Um, if we need shelter, right, but the job that we make is not providing enough to provide shelter, he can supernaturally provide that shelter, right?
Yeah.
If we need clothing, but all that we made is only enough to put food in our stomachs, then he can provide that clothing on top of extra food. He is our provider, and this just I really love this chapter, because it just shows that she didn't have enough to pay off her debtors, but Abba provided.
Yeah.
Rakiul.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
I'm pretty
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to piggyback off of what you said, and probably there's some spiritual connection with the oil. I'm thinking the 10 virgins oil. I'm pretty sure there's some reason why it specifically was oil,
Yeah.
but I think that's
Yeah,
it.
I could see that in the sense that, we know that the word is the light, the word is the lamp. But at the ruach, um, is not that anywhere that it says that the oil is the roux, but um I've just seen it that way, in the sense that
Well,
we're anointed with his roux, and um
hmm
and it takes the roux to be able to see the supernatural side of the word, to see the word manifested in your life, right? Without Yahuwah's roux, then it's just a dead word, right? And you're just reading the words on the page. But with his roux, it's actually manifested and brought forth, and there's supernatural power like what we see right here. So I could see it definitely pointing to. I could see in that sense it being
it is
uh
Yeah.
the similar to the parable of the virgins. Ugh.
very true. Very true. Yeah, I would agree too. I mean, you look at the menorah, it's right there. You have the branches. The menorah obviously supposed to spiritually represent Israel. Where the branches, he's the tree. But when you have the light coming out, the light would be the oil, right? What makes the menorah light? The oil. The ruach is what gives us the light of the world. We're not
Yeah.
we of ourselves without his ruach are not the light of the world. We're the light of the world because he dwells in us, right? His spirit. So, I mean, it's right there. It's just maybe it's not word for word like you were saying. It's there. There's enough hints there that his spirit would be the oil. I mean, there's enough hints. Just even when you look at the seven candlestick menorah, it's right there, and you know, so even the anointing of the priesthood in a spiritual way, the Levites, right, were given his anointing. It might have been in a physical way from the olive oil, but ultimately it goes back to the spiritual. There's an old
Does it say
saying.
how many jars he filled?
Not too sure.
I don't think.
I don't think I was here for that part. I might have been, but let me
He
see
just said to
here.
go and get as many jars.
Yeah.
Um,
He said, fill up as many jars as you can. There would be some left over after you pay the debtor. I don't know if there gives it a number. Yeah, it doesn't.
no.
Could, yeah, but, verse 36, 34 to 36 is the resurrection part. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget about this part of it. This definitely parallels with Yahusha. If you remember, what was the girl's name that he said, Tabitha Komi? Or he used an Aramaic phrase
Yeah.
saying, rise, little one.
Right.
So if you look at that, right, what did Elisha do in this account? He laid on a child and, with Yahuwah's spirit in Elisha, he resurrected that child.
Yeah.
So you have a parallel there. You have Yahusha doing a similar thing with that little girl.
Right.
In the Besor accounts. It's pretty similar. So there's a couple of parallels in this chapter a lot of people overlook. But I think Yahusha even quotes from this account when he talks about he's a resurrection in life. I could have swore he quotes from this Elisha thing. I could be wrong. But I could have swore when he's talking to the Pharisees, he's like trying to get them to understand, like, that what Elisha did was foreshadowing him.
Yeah, there's a place that said in the time of famine, no one repented except this foreigner woman.
Interesting. I never knew she was considered a foreigner or a Gentile. That's interesting. I never caught that.
Okay, actually, no, it's not actually talking about her. Let me see.
Okay.
It's the same, not this chapter. It's regarding the next chapter.
Ah.
Luke 4:27, where it says there were many lepers in Yashraal in the time of Elisha the prophet, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian.
Hmm.
And Naaman's coming up.
Okay, wait. There's going back. This might be what you're looking for, but this is with Elijah. Luke
Okay.
4:25. I tell you truly, there were many widows in Yashraal in the days of Eliyahu, when the heavens were shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great famine all over the land, but to none of them was Eliyahu sent except to Zarephath in the region of Sidon, to a widow woman.
Hmm. Interesting.
I think I realized that there was a famine in Eliyahu's time and in Elisha's time.
Huh. Yeah. Interesting. Do you remember, Mom, how many barley loaves when he did that miracle?
5.
Okay, never mind. Okay, I was just looking at verse 42 here. Okay, so there's no connection there. All right. Yeah, so that there's definitely a couple of parallels here. There's definitely a couple. For me, the big one obviously was the resurrection. The oil with the debt is similar to the Matthew 18 with the master forgiving the debts of his servant, which should have shown the same mercy to his fellow servant and all that, but he ends up treating harshly his brothers. So then Yahusha comes back, treats him just as harshly as he treated his brother. And that kind of goes back and forth with the whole thing we were talking about today, off topic, like off the record, about the judging thing. Yahusha, contrary to people's opinions out there, he never said don't ever judge someone. He said the same judgment you give,
Yeah.
that's going to be given the exact back to you. That's what he actually said. So when you look at the same thing in that parable of the debtor, he treated his brother very harshly. So Yahusha came back, it's like, hey, well, you know what? I'm going to treat you just as harshly as you treated your brother. It's kind of the same concept. So let me see here. I think that's it, though. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. I think we expounded as much as we possibly could of this chapter. So it seems like she's one of the wives of the sons of the prophets, actually. That's something I didn't realize in verse 1 there.
Yeah. Man from the company of the prophets.
Well, the LXX says one of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried to Elisha. So the woman he's going to see she has to be an Israelite.
Yeah.
Because she's a wife of one of the descendants of the prophets. So she would have been related to the prophets ethnically. So that's actually something interesting. I never noticed that. I never noticed this woman was related to the prophets. It's interesting.
And her husband mentioned the Shabbat too, the day that she was going on the donkey to.
So she is a wife of one of the sons of the prophets. No. I just want to write that down. See here. So we're at chapter 5 now, I think.
Yep.
So let me go back to my compare view if I'm going to be reading here. So let's see here. This will just be easier for when we actually look at any differences or anything. All right, so now this is jumping forward kind of. Let me just make sure I'm in the right place. Yeah, so this is jumping kind of forward to now it's talking about a war, it looks like. It's talking about a commander. Interesting. I wonder if Second Kings is in chronological order or not. I always wondered about like chronicler books like
Well,
this.
the only thing I'll say is because I've been reading forward like much
Yeah.
further into it, it does seem to be in order when it shows you when the Assyrian captivity was beginning and stuff like that. So I think at least for some of it, it's in order.
Okay, just trying to see here. All right, so here we go. Chapter 5, verse 1. Naaman, the captain of the host of Syria, was a great man before his master, highly respected because by him Yahuah had given salvation to Syria, and the man was mighty in strength. Now, this is interesting. You don't see this very commonly where Yahuah is helping out a Gentile nation. This is interesting. He's actually giving victory, unless this is at the time period where Israel's being, apostate,
Mm-hmm.
and Yahuwah is using the Syrians to punish them, possibly.
I think so.
The Syrians went forth in small bands, took captive out of the land of Yasharel a little maid. She waited on Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "Oh, that my master were before the prophet of Yahuah in Samaria, then he would recover him from his leprosy." So Samaria, you're going to see a lot because the northern house of Israel at this point in time, they're extremely wicked. So Samaria was a kind of like, what would it be like, a headquarters for the northern house? That it would have been like, what do they call it? The capital of the northern house, Samaria. So she went in and told her master and said, "Thus and thus spoke the maid from the hand, not from the hand, from the land of Yasharal, and the king of Syria said to Naaman." And king of Syria said to Naaman, go, and I will send a letter to the king of Yasharal. And he went and took in his hand 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 change of clothing. Okay. He brought the letter to the king of Yasharal, saying, now then, as soon as his letter shall reach you, behold, I have sent to you my servant Naaman, and you shall recover him from his leprosy. So it seems like this prophet is being sent to heal him of his leprosy. Came to pass when the king of Yasharal read the letter, he rent his garments and said, am I Yahuah to kill or make alive? And this man sends me to recover a man of his leprosy. Consider, however, I pray you, and see that this man seeks an occasion against me. And when Elisha heard that the king of Yasharal had rent his garments, and that he sent to the king of Yasharal, saying, where have you rent your garments? Let Naaman, I pray you, come to me, and let him know that there is a prophet in Yasharal. Okay, so the king, it seems like they went to the king first to get this guy healed. Okay, now it's making a little bit more sense. Naaman came with horse and chariot and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. Okay. Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, go and wash 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh shall return to you, and you shall be cleansed. Naaman was angry and departed and said, he will by all means come out to me and stand and call on the name of his Alahim and lay his hand upon the place and recover or cure the leper. So what's interesting, this is interesting here. This very seldomly does this happen, but it seems like the Septuagint is missing something here. It should actually say here in 2 Kings 5:11, it should say the name of Yahuah, his Alahim. So yeah.
Very possible, though, that Naaman didn't even know the name of his Alua.
True. Yeah, it's a situation where it either was added or taken away, because the Septuagint seems to be the only one that doesn't have it there. The Vulgate has it, the Masoretic has it. I think every other version would have it. So it seems like the Septuagint, either it wasn't originally in the Septuagint or somehow it was taken out. So I've seen that it's very seldomly that happens, though. Very seldomly that happens with the name of Yahuah. Not the Abana, far rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Yashrel. May I not go and wash in them and be cleansed? And he turned and went away in a rage. Servants came near and said to him, suppose the prophet had spoken a great thing to you, would you not perform it? Yet he has but said to you, wash and be cleansed. Now Naaman went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of Elisha. His flesh returned to him as the flesh of a little child, and he was cleansed. Now that's interesting. I see a certain parallel there, because Yahusha makes us clean. Yahushua wants us to be like little children spiritually. So I kind of see like a similarity there, as in his flesh returned to him as a child's flesh, like, how a child's skin is smooth and all that. It's just interesting. And we could take a spiritual, I guess, meaning out of this, like that Yahusha, obviously Yahusha is the one that would cure us of our leprosy. This outer ritual is to represent the living water curing us of a disease, right? And how Yahuah even says in the Tanakh, if you obey me, I won't put on you the diseases of the Egyptians. Go ahead, brother.
To that point, it's interesting that he this restoration of his flesh came through him dipping himself or immersing himself.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons I like the ESV, is they give you, especially on this electronic version, they give you like all these footnotes. So in verse 14 here, they have Exodus 4:7, that I believe is the first instance of leprosy in scripture. Then you have Leviticus 14:7, which is one of the chapters of leprosy, how you're supposed to deal with leprosy and all of that. Leviticus 13 is really the introduction into that. They don't have that reference, but it's really 13 and 14 deal with leprosy and what we're supposed to do according to Torah. All right, so verse 15, he and all his company returned to Elisha, came and stood before him and said, behold, I know that there's no Alahim in all the earth, save only in Yashrel, and now receive a baraka of your servant. Like, this is a really important thing. This goes back to the monotheism thing. Okay. So Yashrel, Israelites understood that Yahuah is one. Yahuah is the only true living Alahim. That's why it's saying that there. So it's making it very clear about that. So even though, like Paul says in his letters, there are many gods or many deities, many lords, there's only one Yahuah. There's only one Yahusha. That's kind of Paul's point, is like, yeah, they can call whatever they want to serve as gods or mighty ones. They're not really mighty ones. So anyway, all right, so we got a cross-reference here for verse 15. We got 1 Samuel, which talks about how Yahuah is the only Alahim. 1 Samuel 25:27, and 1 Kings 13:7. So these are really good ones to go to, especially viewers and listeners, those that are actually watching me as I'm reading, scrolling down here. These are really good cross references to go to in your free time. And Elijah said, as Yahuah lives before whom I stand, I will not take. And he pressed him to take, but would not. Now, I'm assuming this is talking about taking a bribe, a gift.
A gift.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's what it's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just want to keep jotting down these cross references here. So, Daniel 5:17, Acts 8:20. Let's see here. So, all right. Let's see here. Verse 17. Naaman said, well then. No. And Naaman said, well then, if not, let there be given to your servant, I pray you, the load, a yoke of mules. And you shall give me of the red earth, for henceforth your servant will not offer. No. Not offer whole burnt offering or sacrifice to other mighty ones, but only to Yahuah by reason of this thing. So it's talking about offering sacrifices to Yahuah. So again, it's just basically saying that he's saying that I will only offer a sacrifice to Yahuah alone. They give a reference here in verse 17, Isaiah 19:19. So again, if you guys want, I can in the description give you guys all these cross references to go to. That's why I'm kind of writing them down right now. So when this video gets uploaded, I can give it to you guys either in the comment section, whatever you guys prefer. Comment section, description, whatever is easier. Verse 18, I think we're at now. And let Yahuah be. Now this is interesting. Okay, this is where the oneness stuff really gets you get to see some of this stuff in the Septuagint. So it says, I let Yahuah be propitous, which propitous is propitiation. It's like the root word to propitiation. To your servant when my master goes into the house of Ramon to worship there, and he shall lean on my hand, and I shall bow down in the house of Ramon. When he bows down in the house of Ramon, even let Yahuah, I pray, be merciful to your servant in this matter. So what's interesting here is that the LXX uses the word propitious or propitous rather than pardon. Propitous would mean like atonement, to atone, which again is pretty interesting, versus just pardon. So that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to make a little note of that about the LXX. So propitous. which is atone or atonement. I've actually seen verses in the book of Psalms in the LXX that literally says Yahuah became atonement for them. So that's why I pay attention to the propitous word. So Elisha said to Naaman, "Go in peace." He departed from him a little way. Gezi, the servant of Elisha, said, "Behold, my master has spared the Syrian Naaman so as not to take of his hand what he has brought. As Yahuah lives, I will surely run after him and take somewhat of him." So yeah, Gehazi, he
Yeah.
it seems like he had issues with taking gifts and bribes. So Gehazi's following after Naaman. Naaman saw him running after him, turned back from his chariot to meet him. Gehazi said, "All is well, my master has sent me, saying, behold, now he's lying."
Yep.
He's not just trying to get a gift or a bribe. Now he's lying and saying Elisha sent him to get this. "Behold, now are you come to me, 2 men of the sons of the prophets from Mount Ephraim? Give them, I pray you, a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothing." So, yeah. Naaman said, "Take 2 talents of silver." He took 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, 2 changes of clothing, put them upon 2 of his servants, and they bore them before him. And he came back to a secret place, took them from their hands, laid them up in the house, and dismissed the men. And he went in himself. And he went in himself, stood before his master. Elisha said to him, "Where do you come, Gehazi?" And Gehazi said, "Your servant has not been here or there." And Elisha said to him, "Went not my heart with you when the man returned from his chariot to meet you? Now you have received silver. Now you have received clothing, olive yards, vineyards, sheep and oxen, and men servants and maidservants. The leprosy also of Naaman shall cleave to you, to your seed forever." And he went out from his presence, leprous like snow.
Wow.
And so this is an example here. This is kind of foreshadowing like the topic, Brother Yahusha, you brought up either, I think it was 1 or 2 Shabbats ago, about the lying to the set apart spirit. This kind of reminds me of the, what is it? The story in Acts?
Oh, the
Anna and Sapphira, right?
Yeah.
So even though this guy didn't die, he's now cursed with leprosy for like forever. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, no, and you can't hide anything from Yahuah. He reveals it to his servants, the prophets. Everything is exposed.
That's right.
I wonder though, because I was just looking into this story a little while ago, and we see when we get to chapter 8, 8:4, it says, "The king spoke to Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Eluah, saying, please tell me of all the great things that Elisha has done." So you have Gehazi standing before the king a couple chapters later on, and I wonder if he would be able to do this if he was still leprous. A couple, I don't know if it's chapter 6 or chapter 7, but one of the chapters, there's the 7:3, right? There were 4 leprous men by the gate of the city. And these are the men that they warn of people attacking, I think, and something happens, but they're rewarded for something. But I wonder if when we get to chapter 8, if the leprosy was put into remission by Yahuah, It doesn't really say, but we do see him standing before the king. I think it's kind of weird that he would be standing before the king, talking to the king as a leper instead of outside of the gate, you know, outside of the
Yeah.
camp.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's a lot of lessons in this chapter. One of the biggest ones is like greed. What happens with greed?
Yeah.
What happens when you covet things? Because it seems like Gehazi, he just wanted something out of the guy. He felt like, he felt like they were due something or that he should receive something for healing the guy. And it's almost kind of like the spirit of the prosperity gospel, how they extortion the word for money, and they say, if you sow a seed, the Lord's going to give you this. You sow the seed, they turn sowing a seed into you giving them money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost the same thing with this Gehazi guy. He's like, he's lying to the guy, telling him that Elisha sent him when Elisha never did. So this is almost a parallel to like Jeremiah, where the prophets would say, Yahuah told me to tell you this. Yahuah sent me to prophesy good news for you guys, and Jeremiah 23, you can read the whole thing down in the whole chapter, how Yahuwah's like, I never sent you. I never told you to tell them this. I never, so it's not exactly the same as this chapter, but there's like parallels to where Gehazi was almost acting in the same spirit as those false prophets of Jeremiah 23. And you see that in the Christian church today. They'll say, they'll never use Yahuwah's name, but they'll say, as the Lord lives, this is going to happen. That's going to happen for you. And they tell them all the pleasant things that they want to hear. And, you got a great future ahead of you. Thus says thus says the Lord, you're gonna, get a huge breakthrough and this and that. And it's like nice, like hippie type of messages, and like very hippie-ish, never repentance, never, judgments coming. They never want to preach about judgment. They never want to preach about repentance. It's all about monetary and all that, but that's what I'm reminded about when I read like chapters like this one in Jeremiah 23, is about people that are greedy of gain. And you see in Revelations what Yahushua says about Balaam, what he says about all these other false prophets. So Gehazi, I'm assuming, there's not much we can really get from this guy and what type of Israelite he really was, because it seems like he was serving Elisha and he had ulterior motives. I wouldn't go as far as to say he was like Simon the magician, but he definitely had ulterior motives and was trying to materially benefit off of the Basora, similar to others. And that's what it seems like to me. I could be wrong, but it seems like Gehazi was like, didn't have a genuine heart.
And then he thinks he can lie to Elisha, and that Elisha is not going to know. That's not going to be able to read.
And see what people don't understand is, like, when you're lying to a prophet, you're actually lying to Yahuah.
Yeah, that's right.
This is what people don't understand. It's like, it's not like, oh, he just lied to Elisha. Elisha had Yahuwah's spirit in him, just like, he was in the same office as Eliyahu was. So he was the replacement of Eliyahu. So Eliyahu had Yahuwah's spirit in him. And so was Elisha. So you're really just lying to the Father. It's not just, oh, you're just lying to a mortal being. You're lying to the Father because that person has Yahuwah's anointing on them. So it's kind of the same thing. That's why I compared it to Anna and Sapphira, is that they thought they were just lying to Kepha. Kepha's filled with Yahusha's Ruach, with Yahuwah's Ruach. You're lying to Yahusha. You're lying to Yahuwah is what's really going on. That's why they said you're lying to the set apart spirit. And they were struck dead. They were struck dead because, by extension, they lied to the Most High.
Mhm.
So that's the reason they were struck dead. A lot of people misunderstand that in the church, but that's the real reason that they were killed. And this guy might have not got killed. Gehazi might have not got that strict of a circumstance, but guess what? Now his whole family is going to be leprous. Now his whole family is going to be disease filled. Yahuwah sometimes doesn't always give us the same punishments, but he'll give us the punishment that he deems
Mhm.
equal to the crime. You know, for some reason, what this guy did wasn't as bad as what Anna and Sapphira did. Maybe because Anna and Sapphira made a vow
Yeah.
to Yahuwah,
Yeah.
possibly. The vow part of it
Mhm.
resulted in death. You know, it's possible that's why Yahuwah didn't have mercy on them and didn't spare their lives. So just guessing, you know. So, but yeah. Let me see. We might need a new reader here for chapter 6. Let's see here. I don't know if Dennis is feeling well enough right now. Sister Marissa, are you able to read right now?
No, unfortunately, no, I'm not. Sorry, bro.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Brother Yahusha, could you possibly finish us up in chapter 6?
Yeah, sure. I think Dennis can read.
Okay.
What did you? Okay, chapter 6. Real quick though, on just on the whole prosperity gospel thing, this guy is this guy is being greedy over 2 changes of clothing. I mean, and what some of us have like a wardrobe, right? Man, we have an overabundance of we're very, very baruch, you know. We have pantries of food and um refrigerators full of food, you know. All right, chapter 6.
Yeah. Good point. 2 point.
The sons of the prophets said to Elisha, behold, now the place where we dwell before you is too narrow for us. Let us go to the Jordan and take from there every man a beam and make for ourselves a habitation there. He said, go. And one of them said gently, come with your servants. And he said, I will go. And he went with them, and they came to the Jordan and began to cut down wood. And behold, one was cutting down a beam, and the axe head fell into the water, and he cried out, alas, master, and it was hidden. And the man of the Lord said, where did it fall? And we showed him the place, and he broke up a stick and threw it in there, and the iron came to the surface. And he said, take it up to yourself. And he stretched out his hand and took it. And the king of Syria was at war with Yashraal. And he consulted with his servants, saying, I will encamp in such a place. And Elisha sent to the king of Yashraal, saying, take heed that you pass not by that place, for the Syrians are hidden there. And the king of Yashraal sent to the place which Elisha mentioned to him, and he was watchful there, not just once or twice. And the mind of the king of Syria was very much disturbed concerning this thing. And he called his servants and said to them, will you not tell me who betrays me to the king of Yashraal? And one of his servants said, none, my master, O king, but Elisha the prophet that is in Yashraal reports to the king of Yashraal all the words that you speak in your bedroom. That's another example of nothing is hidden before Yahuah. Elisha knew the very words that were spoken in his own bedroom. He said, go see where this man is, and I will send and take him. and they sent word to him, saying, Behold, he is in Dathan. And he sent horses there and chariots and a great army, and they came by night and compassed about the city. And the servant of Elisha rose up early and went out, and behold, an army compassed the city, and horses and chariots. And the servant said to him, O master, what shall we do? And Elisha said, Fear not, for they who are with us are more than they that are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Yahuah, open the eyes of the servant, I pray, and let him see. And Yahuah opened his eyes, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses. There were chariots of fire round about Elisha. And they came down to him. And he prayed to Yahuah and said, Strike this people and pray, I pray, with blindness. And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, This is not the city, and this is not the way. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. And he led them away to Samaria. And it came to pass when they entered into Samaria that Elisha said, O Yahuah, open their eyes and let them see. And Yahuah opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Yasharal said to Elisha when he saw them, Shall I not kill them, my father? And he said, You shall not kill them, unless you would kill those whom you have taken captive with your sword and with your bow. Set bread and water before them, and let them eat and drink, and depart to their master. And he set before them a great feast, and they ate and drank, and he dismissed them, and they departed to their master. And the bands of Syria came no longer into the land of Yasharal, kill them with kindness. And it came to pass after this that the son of Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his army and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until a donkey's head was valued at 50 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung at 5 pieces of silver. I wonder what they're doing with dove's dung. And the king of Yasharal was passing by on the wall, and a woman cried to him, saying, Help, my master, O king. And he said to her, Unless Yahuah help you, how shall I help you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress? Hold on 1 second. Okay. And the king said to her, What is the matter with you? And the woman said to him, This woman said to me, Give your son, and we will eat him today. And we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, Give your son and let us eat him. But she has hidden her son. And it came to pass when the king of Yasharal heard the words of the woman that he tore his clothes, and he passed by on the wall, and the people saw sackcloth upon his flesh. And he said, Yahuah, do so to me and more also, if the head of Elisha shall not stand upon him this day. And Elisha was sitting in his house, and elders were sitting with him, and the king sent a man before him. But before the messenger came to him, Elisha said to the elders, Do you see that this son of a murderer has sent to take away my head? See, as soon as the messenger has come, shut the door and forcibly detain him at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? While he was yet speaking with them, behold, a messenger came to him, and he said, Behold, this evil is of Yahuah. Why should I wait for Yahuah any longer?
Hey, what happened? Are you guys there?
Muted when he was reading. My bad, Mom. I should have told you we were muted when
Oh,
he
so
was
they didn't hear
reading.
anything I said.
So no, just restate what you were trying to say.
I'll just
Yeah.
I'll just paraphrase a little bit. What I basically had said was that we can see how different this time period was from David's time period. David did not need the company of the prophets constantly with him when he was going through all of his battles, and him and Yahuah had that personal thing where he would go up into the hills and ask Father, do I go? Are you going to give them into my hands? And there was this constant rapport. But now, I was noticing the attitude of this king of Israel, and it's like you can tell their hearts are not like that, like the heart of David. They were definitely more apostate at this time period. And I was just noticing that as you constantly see the company of the prophets involved here. And I also, just one last thing that I wanted to say is that, our hearts definitely were hurting for Elisha when Elijah was taken up, in the chariots of fire. And, but we see what a beautiful thing the Father is constantly with him, even more so now than when Elijah was with him. And, he's just like leading and guiding and allowing him to know things that he knew what was going on with Gehazi, even though Gehazi lied to him. And I'm just constantly seeing Father's interaction with Elijah on every, sort of pillar and post, so to speak,
Yep. This is one of my favorite parts of the chapter here. So Yahuwah is opening the eyes of these soldiers, of these guys that are with Elisha, and they get to see, because they're fearful. They're basically fearful of what they're up against. And it kind of reminds me, I don't know if this is the same chapter, but there's a similar chapter where the eyes are open and they see chariots of fire and they see the heavenly army all around them. And it kind of shows that,
Oh, and don't you love this? Those who are with us are more than those who are with them.
yeah, what verse is that?
16.
Okay, so don't be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. So this is the concept of, like, they see the chariots of fire after Yahuwah removes the veil in the firmament. Now they're seeing all the heavenly army, or what's commonly called the heavenly host, that's with them, and and all that. So that's what Elisha was trying to show them, that because they were getting afraid. They were fearful of the number of their enemies, not realizing that Yahuwah's whole heavenly army was on their side. And Yahuwah's on their side. And, it kind of goes back to that scripture, he who is in us is greater than he who's in the world. Yeah. So, yeah. Verse 17, chariots of fire. Yeah. So the chariots of fire obviously is, what a lot of people mistaken as what I believe people mistaken as UFOs and as spaceships, quote unquote. I think a lot of that, what people see in the sky today, are just chariots of fire. Yeah. And there's a tons of cross references here. You have Genesis 21:19. I'm going to write down some of these here. 16 or 6 verse 17. You have Genesis 21. 19, Numbers 22, 31, 2 Kings 7, verse 6, Psalms 125, verse 2. Then you have Matthew 26, 53. So, you know. And it's interesting. Elisha actually asks Yahuah to strike them with blindness. So that's interesting. Kind of similar to how Yahusha, son of Nun, asked Yahuah or told Yahuah to make the, what was it, the sun stop?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very similar to Yahusha, son of Nun, and what he did. It's interesting. Led them to Samaria. As soon as they entered Samaria, Elijah said, "Open the eyes of these men, they may see." Drink to their master. Trying to see if there's anything else before we finish up here. 80 shekels of silver. Whoa, this is different. I'm glad I actually took my time scrolling down here. Verse 25 seems to be different. Septuagint has 50 pieces. And the Masoretic has 80 shekels. Interesting. I wonder why the difference. And that's also in the Vulgate as well. The Vulgate says 80, so it's kind of interesting when differences in measurements like that with the pieces of silver. I wonder what significance that would play. Go ahead, brother.
Maybe 50 pieces of silver is equivalent to 80 shekels of silver.
Let's see here. We'll look that up. Could be possible. Yeah, I don't know exactly if pieces and shekels are equal, so that's probably where the confusion is. Let me see
I don't
here.
think this is an actual measurement. I think it's just being general.
Equal to. Yeah, I mean, obviously, piece is a very modern English word. Pieces would have not been used back in ancient times, so that's another problem when you start modernizing it. Seems like they're not too sure exactly if it would equal it. If the two would be equal in measurement. Sorry about that. Yeah, allergies are out today. Let's see here. Saying something about 50 shekels from, well, we're actually looking for 80 shekels, but they're talking about 50 shekels from 2 Samuel. They're saying here in Bible Hub commentaries, so take it with a grain of salt. This is a Christian commentary. 80 pieces of silver equal to about 5. That's a weird. What is that? Is that an F they're trying to do? That's a weird letter they're trying to. Yeah. Let's see.
So apparently,
Oh, go ahead.
Apparently, peace is actually a term that they would use. Maybe not. It says a shekel was the unit of coinage as well as weight, and the pieces of metal which served for currency were either fractions or multiples of the standard shekel.
See that's confusing. Yeah. So it could be equal or it could be different because if pieces mean fragments, that's not exactly, I don't think
An exact.
that wouldn't be exactly 80 shekels. That would be a little bit less. I don't think you could get 80 shekels out of 50 pieces if they're fragments. That would be, maybe half of 80 shekels, maybe 40. It depends on what a piece is. If they're referring to a piece as a half of a shekel, or like we would need to figure out what exactly like the math would be for a piece versus a shekel. Because it's weird too that the Septuagint's the only one saying piece. That's another weird thing. Or actually, no, the Vulgate says pieces, but it says 80 pieces. So it's very strange. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little head scratcher there. I don't know. I've seen that a lot though with measurements in general, where the Septuagint doesn't always agree. Go ahead, bro.
I wonder what they were using dove's poop for.
I don't know. That commentary is talking something about Josephus's commentary that they would use doves. Let me see here. Just say here it says according to the rabbis. Let's see here. It says something about Josephus's Antiquities, chapter 4, verse 4. The term dove's dung, in all probability, denotes some kind of common vegetable produce, perhaps a sort of pulse or peas, which was ordinarily very cheap. Such a designation is not unparalleled. The Arabs called the herb kali. I mean, I don't know how that has anything to do with the measurements. I don't get that. So they're kind of going on a rabbit trail with that commentary. I don't know what that has to do with this. They're claiming that the original wording instead of 80 shekels would have been 4 score, or 80 shekels would be equal to 4 score pieces. Let me see here. So 4 score. What does 4 score mean?
I'm not sure.
4 score in Old English. What number is 4 score? Because I remember the Old English translations would do that a lot. They would do 4 score or 6 score.
80? I don't know.
Well, it's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for 4 course. I'm looking for 4 score.
So it says, according to Radak and Metsudos Zion, the dung was needed as fuel for fire since they couldn't access the forest to get wood since they were under siege. Well, this is talking about a different instance, I'm sure, but oh no, it's talking about the same thing. According to Ralbag Gersonides, the doves were able to fly outside the camp and eat from the available grain. When they came back inside the camp, there were some kernels of grain which passed undigested out in the excrement. The famine was so severe that people were buying the dung in order to seek out these kernels. That's disgusting.
Okay, so 4 score means 4 times. So multiplying 4 by something. So what I'm trying to figure out is how they're getting 80 pieces from 4 score. What I could see them getting it from would be 4 score times 20. You would get, let's see here. 4 score means 4 times 20, or 80, when you add in 10, it sums up to 90. So somehow, yeah, I mean, it's confusing. It's confusing when the measurements are not the same. So, yeah, it's just confusing. It's confusing when one says pieces, the other says shekels, is the confusing part. Like that, I'm guessing that's due to the translator picking whatever word they want to use. Shekels I'm way more familiar with because that's what most of the old Bibles would use. Let's see here. Okay. Other than that, I didn't really see a major difference in this chapter. Eh, yeah, I don't think I saw anything else really. See, this shows you how apostate they were. They were eating their children.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I wonder if that's a fulfillment of Deuteronomy. Didn't Deuteronomy 28 or 29 say something like that? So you would eat your own children?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Well,
Like
I
when
believe the father said that they were going to be doing that, didn't he?
yeah,
curse?
that's what I was kind of hinting at. That Deuteronomy 28 part of the curses is you will eat
Mhm.
your own children. And it's saying here in verse 29, so we boiled my son and ate him.
Yeah.
On the next day I said to her, give your son that we may eat him. But she was hidden her son. This is like an exact, almost word for word fulfillment of Deuteronomy 28. Let me see if I can find the exact verse from Deuteronomy 28. You will eat your children. It seems like some of the stuff from Deuteronomy 28 was already getting fulfilled at that time. You will eat children. Yep, Deuteronomy 28, 53 to 63. You
You
will
know,
eat. Oh, go ahead.
it's just crazy that she says this to the king like it's nothing. Like like where's my recompense? Have this woman give me her son too. Like really?
Yeah. But this was part of the curses. It says, you will eat your children, verse 53 of Deuteronomy 28. The flesh of your sons, daughters, Yahuah your Alahim has given you during the siege and hardship your enemy imposes on you.
Mm-hmm.
The most sensitive and refined man among you will look grudgingly at his brother or the wife he embraces and the rest of his children, refusing to share with any of them his children's flesh. So this is like word for word. And we see this getting partially fulfilled already in, what would this be, Elisha's time? So this is even before we get to Daniel's generation. So from like this generation to Daniel's generation, a lot of that was getting fulfilled between that gap. So you had a lot of that being fulfilled, and all that. So it's interesting. I think that some of that is still to be fully fulfilled because I think there's even certain things it talks about in prophecy. I would have to go back to prophecy, but there's certain things where, you know, it talks about certain things like that. I don't know about the eating children part, but I think the other stuff in Deuteronomy 28, obviously you have Yahuwah's people turning to him in captivity. Part of Deuteronomy 20, part of the curses would be that you would worship wood and stone. So Yahuwah would give us for a time up to almost like a reprobate mind until we would come back to him and repent and say, you're going to worship, gods of wood and stone, those you never knew. And it talks about, when you despise and hate your sins, you will come back to me in your captivity. So that a lot of that is happening right now, where people are getting fed up with their, worshiping gods of wood and stone. All right, so
There's a difference in that last verse. It says, "Do you see how this?" The Masoretic says, "Do you see how this murderer?" Whereas the Septuagint and the Vulgate says, "Do you see how this son of a murderer?"
Huh. What verse is that?
Verse 32.
Oh, 32. All right, that's why. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder why they would take that out. Son of a. I wonder why. I wonder why. Why would they do that? It's very strange. Very strange. Well, see here. Let me write that one down. So that's 6 verse 32. And this will come in handy for a future study. And actually, I could add this to our manuscript doc that we have with the second witnesses to the Septuagint study that we've been doing. So this son of is in the LXX and Vulgate, but not in the Masoretic. So, wait. Well, hopefully you guys got some edification today out of today's study. I apologize for taking so much time to try to figure out those measurements and stuff, but I was just trying to see if there was a legitimate variance in the text or if there was like just just like like Brother Yahusha brought up, maybe the 80 shekels could equal 50 pieces. So I was just trying to figure that out. So because I've seen times where it will be equal measurements but different numbers. Like it will say both either pieces in both, but it will have a different number, or shekels in both and have a different amount of shekels compared to one another. So I just wanted to make sure that wasn't like an actual difference in the text. So anyway, uh yeah. Yeah, so Yahuah willing, I'll try to remember to put all this stuff that we went through in the description or comments section. Even what Brother Yahusha found with the measurement difference, I'll try to put either in the description of the video or the comment section so you guys can look into that for yourselves. So other than that, thank you guys for joining in today, and thank you for listening in and viewing the study. As I always say and try to say, test all things. Don't just believe us for what we're saying here. Test what we're expounding on and the scriptures we're reading. And have a great rest of Yahuwah and Yahusha's Shabbat, all of our brothers and sisters out there. And Shabbat Shalom. All right. Now, where I got to figure out, oh man, they changed